yeah, I knew how to do it, not because I was, a proficient on the field of teaching in those days, but just because I was somehow I had experienced my own trail, and I was able to sort of go on the same way with them, and it worked. But still, I needed some, scientific grounds, I would say. Uh, I was lucky to meet some years ago Florencia from Soft. She introduced me actually in the real world of teaching dyslexic learners with, as I would say, specific grounds. I mean, something that I was able to sort of grab with, uh, with foundations, because I know where to start from and I know where I am going with the
wait,
method.
may I interrupt you? If
Sure.
now if now somebody, I'm going back to the original question, if somebody involved himself, herself into a conversation with you, and they don't know you, and they ask you, "Hi, SUSANA, what actually are you doing? Are you a teacher?"
Today,
Yes.
today I am working as a language therapist. I mean, today I am. I mean, if I have to sort of have my first title would be translator, as I said before, which I am not currently doing.
So
taking
how
up.
would you define your profession today?
Today is language therapist after
Okay.
the whole process, I would say, career. I took up the. I took up a kind of diploma on dyslexia and literacy, which also gave me the grounds. I mean, apart from all the things that I learned from your group of teachers, Flor and some others, I decided that I needed to sort of get specific information on what dyslexia is about, to sort of being able to pass on these concepts onto my students. And today I am working with a group of professionals, supporting students at schools, different schools. We sort of go to, the school and work with, alongside with the teachers, giving them different, support, instructions, suggestions on how to accommodate students, not only for exams, but also to provide them access on how to reach the certain topics on the curriculum. We insist that they are not supposed, teachers in schools, to reduce the amount of teaching or content from the curriculum, but on the other hand, to provide them reasonable access to bridge the gap.
Right.
In spite of their dyslexia, in spite of their somehow problems or struggles with reading, okay, provide them with different tools so that they would be able to read in order to learn. And once they can read properly, they are intelligent and able enough to reach the standards of their peers, the normal, as you say.
Right. At that point, they are able to materialize and to utilize their intelligence. They are not blocked anymore, because they are always very intelligent, but they are blocked because they cannot read, or because they are slow readers. And once we solve this problem of reading, then they finally can really utilize their competence, right?
Exactly.
But I always feel that those who cannot read are blocked. Okay, they cannot come forward, they cannot pursue, they cannot do a lot, or they cannot do what they could have done if they could read. And once we provide them with this skill, then they are free to exploit their own competence.
Sure. Yes, as we always say, and I've learned this, for sure, that we are not born with these skills. We are not born with the ability to read and write.
That's very important.
This is something that we need to sort of, whenever we talked about, we are used to telling teachers, we need to sort of build the path, I mean, the networks, the connections in the brain so that students learn how to read and write. I say, well, okay, but we are teaching them how to read and write. No, I mean, they need to find their own, networks somehow. We teach them the conventions. We try to teach them the code so that they will be able to actually decode the language, whichever the language, I mean, alphabetic, pictographic, whichever the language it might be, right? But the thing is, if they can decode, they understand each of the different sounds, I would say, that make up this code, they will be able to start reading by themselves. And then the rest comes out naturally, because then we give meaning to the words, then we can activate other mechanisms such as understanding semantics, morphology, or whatever we want to within the text.
Okay, so I would like to add, first of all, when you said pictographic, it's what we do with the deciphering. And I came up with the notion that actually when you do the deciphering of the pictures, it's less abstract. And so it's much easier for a non-reader to achieve the reading, not to go from straight to the sound, to decode the letter to a sound, but to go through the pictures first. So very often, also in the books, we give them the pictures and they need to decode so-called the pictures without even the letters. So this is one thing that's very interesting.
That's why, I mean, at least for me, I sort of say the method is the method in my, I mean, when I started using it, I found it very interesting, the idea of somehow connecting the two hemispheres of our brains, you see, because whenever I try to teach a word or to teach a sound, I mean, from the abstract point of view, it was impossible. I mean, for me, it is impossible to learn something, I mean, from the, logics straight away. But if I start by introducing this as a kind of game somehow, but I mean, playing with these pictures of these mnemonics that represent sounds, this is, I mean, the magic comes out automatically, because they start reading without realizing that they are reading. I mean, apart from many other things that the method sort of provides students with, this idea of grabbing the pencil to draw the letters. I mean, we are building this, as I said before, pathway, or these pathways actually in the brain that connect whatever it has to do with the right side to the left side and vice versa, because they go back and forth all the time. They picture the word in their minds while they are playing with the words or seeing the words through these mnemonics. And then once they have the picture of the word, all right, in their, I mean, words box or whatever we want to call it, they can articulate it and we can play with the word. And that's it. When they have it in their, as I said again, as I said, the box of words, or call it the long-term memory, they can start producing them everywhere. And then when they are reading, there's no need to stop, decode, and encode the word to go on reading. Reading, I mean, happens automatically.
Okay, that's what we want to reach. We want to reach the automaticity. But as you said before, people don't know, are not aware of the fact that reading is not an automatic skill. It's not like talking, because when a baby grows up, he learns to talk, or they learn to talk by themselves, and that doesn't apply always to reading. And and what we also say, that a brain, after the brain has learned to read, these experts, which we are not, I'm definitely not, but these brain experts, they see a different brain arrangement, which is amazing. So what it proves that a brain, a reader, can do other activities that he couldn't do before. So what it means for these dyslexic people, that what they couldn't do before learning to read, they can do now. And this is one of the reasons, among many others, that I insist on learning to read. Okay, I don't want the global method. I don't want like echoing or the choir method that I say a sentence and they repeat after me. I
No, it
think
doesn't
these
work.
are, it doesn't work. These are, don't want to say the word, but I find it horrific, really. They are not
Exactly.
motivating, they're not interesting, they're not enhancing any skill. It's just repeating. And some people still believe in it. Some people still believe that if you sit in front of a screen, okay, and you repeat 10 times after the
You will
voice,
actually acquire it.
but
Well,
it's
it
not
actually will
because,
depend on the, sorry for the interruption. It actually will depend on the kind of dyslexia, actually, the subject the person is undergoing anyhow. But in general, we dyslexics learn through the phonological, loop. And we need to graph, to see the word in written to make the match. Otherwise, we won't get it. I might hear 1,000 times, as you said before, being exposed to a native a word, but I might be thinking of hearing something when I am actually hearing some other.
yes,
Or when it comes to, make the match between what I've heard and what I am reading, what actually seeing, which is not what I am reading, because maybe I will read it some other way. It's completely different, and I
I,
have two words instead of just one,
I
because we
must
tend to
tell you,
listen a chunk, we hear a chunk,
that's it. Okay, so
and
regarding
then
the
we need to
chunk,
sort of de-chunk it.
right, so
And
regarding
this is
chunk,
why we need to work, as actually, well, I insist. I love the method. This is not the only thing that I use to teach my students. I 90% use the method, and then the rest is whatever it comes from outside, and I sort of somehow manipulate the material so that it will sort of suit my needs and my students' needs, right? But in general, this is what we need to do. We need to read the word phoneme by phoneme to make sure that this is what we've heard when we read it and the way we should read, because we dyslexics need to learn, as I insist all the time, by rules. If we can't somehow, it sounds strange, but if we can learn a rule, we know that, I don't know, this sound will sound like this in this and this and other patterns. If we can learn with a pattern, then we can make uh, some analogies, we can compare, and then we are the builders of our language, because this is one of our characteristics. As you said before, we cannot be told. I
right,
cannot be said, okay, you have to say this way and repeat after me, because I won't.
okay, but wait,
Hard as I try, I won't.
okay. So first of all, regarding the auditory distinction, this is one of the reasons why I always tell other teachers not to use the names of the letters at all, and certainly not when you come to teach SH, CH, TH, because they don't hear it. They just hear H, 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 H. They don't hear, they cannot conceive what we say. So I always talk to them using the sounds. If I want to say something about the SH, I say sh. I don't say SH. And when I want to say something about the ch sound, I don't say CH, I say ch, because otherwise they cannot differentiate between SH and CH and TH. This is one of the things. Secondly, what
Exactly.
I didn't mention at the beginning, that we both we teach English as a second language and as a foreign language, because we teach students their native language is certainly not English. So here also the sounds are completely new. So we also need to train the phonological distinction and the awareness, and to train the accent a little, things like that. And when you said that you don't want just to be said or to be told to say this, and you want rules, this is what I always preach about, because I say dyslexic people are intelligent people and are
Exactly.
logical people, and they need rules. Now, look, when we talk about we mention disorders like language disorders. So when we have a
Yeah.
disorder, we want to bring in order. So the
Just one
rule,
thing, sorry, before I forget, because this is some characteristic. I hate the word, I mean, disorder, difficulty, problem, because it's different tactics. I insist in lots of definitions about dyslexia, and many professionals, even, psychologists, who keep on saying, well, okay, the dyslexic brain sort of shows a disorder in the, as you said before, no, language process, or the processing of
right, the
language,
processing,
and we have
exactly.
a different hearing and reading, processing system, which is
Right,
not a disorder,
right,
because once, we learn how to achieve this aim, which is actually read and write, it's exactly the same, but from a different perspective, let's call
right.
it.
Okay, so first they called it all the learning difficulties, they called it disabilities, then they called it uh, difficulties, then they called it learning differences, now they call it learning challenges, and each time they changed the name.
Exactly.
But I wanted to emphasize the order, because I want to bring order, and order is brought by rules, and rules meet the logic. And this is why I understand what you're saying, and I emphasize it all the time, that we should not treat those dyslexic students, no matter their age, as, God forbid, disabled students or things like that. Although I
Exactly.
myself, I teach also children or adults who are, I don't know how to put it, but are cognitive poor, okay, or they have a lesser cognitive ability, or cognitive challenges, and there it's really more complicated. But still, they can learn to read, and this is one of the things I also wanted to mention, because very often people ask me, how long will it take? And then I always answer with how long will it take for me to lose 2 kilos? Okay, I don't know, always the same.
Exactly.
But the
Exactly.
thing is, people ask me, can he learn to read? Okay, can my daughter or my son learn to read? And I usually, I always say that everyone can learn to read, but I cannot guarantee that the process will be successful if we have a cognitive problem
Look,
or cognition problem,
exactly.
because then I may recommend eventually the global reading, which I really don't like. But if I cannot use the logic, then I may consider also more of the sight words, God forbid, for myself, because I hate the term of sight word, and I use less decoding. But on the other hand, I try to use the decoding as much as possible, even with those who have cognition challenges, because I know that I am rewiring the brain. I'm doing something good to the brain. So it
Sure.
takes time and it goes slowly, but slowly, slowly they learn to decode, and they learn to blend, and they learn many things that they didn't know before and that their brain didn't know how to do before.
Exactly.
And this is
Exactly.
my
Sure.
achievement, even though if I don't get, to reading within, let's say, 3 months. So it will take 6 months, but
Yeah, but
eventually,
they are on the process.
but
They are on the process.
that's it. The process by itself is so
Yeah,
useful and
sure.
so important. So I prefer, to put and to invest a lot, really, a lot of patience, a lot of energy, a lot of everything into the process. But I know that eventually, even if maybe not all the patterns, like in daughter and brought and caught and taught, maybe they won't be able to recognize it, to recognize those patterns, but the basic reading will be theirs and the basic decoding will be theirs. And then I know that the rewiring of the brain, the arrangement of the brain will be different, and that's a great achievement for those people.
Sure. Well, together with this idea or concept of rules, starting or implementing rules, I myself insist on saying that rules bring about order, as you said before, and order brings about routines. And this is actually what we need And that's why I insist that I need to follow a method or a book or whatever we want to call it, order. Because if we establish routines, this is what actually our brains need. Every brain, I mean, every individual's brain, dyslexics or non-dyslexics. But the thing is that we, especially dyslexics, need to have a kind of order because we live in a disorder. Disorder in terms of not disorder problem, but disorganization. I mean, I find it very difficult myself to get organized if I don't have an agenda. I don't have somebody telling me, I'm sending a reminder that we will be meeting as you did this morning. You see, we need kind of hints, reminders all the time. And I mean, following a method, sort of accompanied or being accompanied by a method is kind of being accompanied by kind of a scaffolding that helps me build on, I mean, more knowledge or
Yeah,
at least
keeps
reach.
that within a framework
Like
also.
a
So
ladder, you know, it lets me or allows me to go a step forward.
yeah, step
I
by step.
mean,
But this is
small
yeah,
steps to the
right,
big jump, as I
right.
said it. We need to, so we have a general picture, but then somehow we need to go back to the basis and start giving small, you know, steps to the bigger, I mean, to the biggest one or to the final jump. But at least have an organization. If not, it's impossible.
I have
And this is
one.
the rewiring, actually, because we need to sort of re-educate somehow our brains. I studied neurosciences, and within this when I was taking this course, I learned a lot about how the brain actually works by seeing the work, the brain being monitored while being taught
Right,
language.
right.
And it's incredible because at the beginning, we dyslexics had this side, well, the neurocortex on the left side, as if it didn't exist. It was off. And then little by little, the lights starts, I mean, all the lights start turning on,
Neurons, right.
sparkling at the beginning, and then they finally turn on completely. And
So
it's
this is why I
incredible to
don't
see that.
give up. This is exactly why I don't give up. I'm so persistent. I'm as a person, I'm persistent, and I'm, doing the same to my students. I don't let them off the hook. And with this girl that I have, she's 22 years old. She's in a kind of a hostel. And she has lots of other problems. And sometimes her mother sends me a message. Maybe it's too difficult for her. Maybe it's too much for her. And I say, no, it's not too much for her. It will take 2 more lessons and she will do it. But the mother is a little overprotective, or maybe she's anxious. She's entitled to be. And I don't give in. I say, no, I'm going through it. And I want, you reminded me of, I have someone who is more than 70 today. I think I met him when he was 68. And he said, my dream is to be able to read English and to learn to speak English. But and he said about himself, I'm very dyslexic. He cannot even say the word dyslexic. So dyslexic he is. He cannot pronounce properly the word dyslexic. And when I was teaching him, one day I told him, look, I feel as your brain is a complete jungle with
Exactly.
lots of weeds and plants and trees and thick. And I have to go through your jungle and to get through it. And I'm going bit by bit, and I'm pushing all these bushes aside as if I am in your brain. And it's tough. Believe me, sometimes it's really tough. And sometimes, I used to
It
kick him.
is.
I used to kick him under the table. I said, listen to me, you're not listening. Because sometimes, as if this jungle is protected by such a thick wall, and you really need to wake them up and say, you are not listening. You are not listening. Listen to me, and take the pencil
Yes,
and put it
yes.
here and put it there.
Well,
To
that's our kind of shield that we tend to call it. Well, we call it amygdala, but it's the amygdala or our shield. We feel frustrated. We feel unable to do it. We feel in the middle of a jungle, as your metaphor went, and we stopped learning. I mean, our emotions somehow tell us, well, okay, we won't learn, so let's avoid whatever has to do with learning. And this is actually going back to the beginning, the challenge, because we are not challenged. we are challenging as teachers ourselves as well, because we need to teach our students to read and to somehow pull down this barrier or these challenges our students are sort of coming across all the time. But for me, it's fascinating because, as you
Sure,
said before, with your student, you are defying somehow your student's brain.
exactly. And you know what also happens? Sometimes mainly the children, they become very stubborn. In the process
Yes.
of learning, they become very stubborn, and it takes time really
Well,
like
but this is, yeah, because of this. I mean, this is a natural
emotional,
activation of their own brains that they
yeah,
cannot help. I come to schools where I say, well, but this student is undergoing some learning difficulty, they call it, and besides, he has problems with his emotions because he cannot control himself, etc. Well, this is not absolutely natural. It has to do. I mean, we cannot control it. This is our brains protecting ourselves from the unknown or from something that we don't feel able to do or accept.
right? And also to get out of your own comfort zone, because here you know and you're
Yeah,
familiar with it.
we have to. Of course, we insist all the time. We have to leave the comfort zone. But in order to do that, I mean, you as a teacher need to know how to do it because we won't be able to do it by ourselves. If I mean, I have a teacher in front of me telling me all the time, you have to do it. You have to read it. This is this way. You have to. Well, it's impossible. You are building a wall
Well,
instead
and
of, pulling it downwards.
right. So that's the extra wall, because I always explain to people that when you learn English as a second language, and especially when you come from a different alphabet, then there is a very big wall. I mean, when you come from Spanish and you have the same reading system, then it's a little easier. But when you come from Arabic, for instance, or Chinese, you cannot read anything. And then without reading, there is a real thick, massive wall that needs to be torn down, because otherwise the student cannot learn and cannot remember and cannot practice. And this brings me also to the fact that sometimes people say, he has a short learning memory. He doesn't remember a short-term memory. He cannot remember. And I always say, I want first to test the reading level, the reading fluency with simple words, pseudo words, meaningless words, and to see how
Exactly.
they can read. Because when you do it with something like a passage, then first of all, those who don't know English, they get already anxious. And those who can understand English, then they are intelligent enough to complete. So we don't want
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
test them on meaningful words. And once I prove this parent or this student that because the reader is a challenged reader and cannot read easily and comfortably, that's why he cannot remember the new vocabulary. It's as simple as that.
Exactly.
For us, it's simple as that. Okay, I think we can, stop for now and meet again.
Okay, fantastic. But
Yeah.
it's been a wonderful morning, Sunday morning. I mean,
Okay, I have to thank you a lot, because I would never, never have a presentation on myself talking like this,
well, no,
because
me
I
too.
I need the interaction with someone. Otherwise, I don't do it. I cannot do it. Okay, so I'm
Well,
stopping
great.
now.
Thank you for the invitation again.